Welcome to The Aftermath, a podcast that rips the Band-Aid off the collective scars of divorce, custody battles, and the trauma of family drama. Kendra Reiber and Mick Smith pull back the curtain and explore stories that put the heart-wrenching puzzle pieces together with inspiring stories, notable experts, and actionable tips. Let the healing begin. Welcome once again. This is The Aftermath, and this is Mick, the Doctor of Digital, and this is also Kendra Reiber, legislative advocate. How are you doing today, Kendra?
I am wonderful, Mick. I am looking forward to our guest today.
Can you
So
believe who we have? Yes, indeed.
I know, one of our missions here on this podcast is to really help people get through a divorce, right? So, and there's many different stages to that, and there's many different things that we have to go through. And so, Elizabeth is going to join us today, and I think we're going to get into a little bit more of things you don't think about when you go through a divorce, right? And you're kind of maybe on the other side and you go, oh, this isn't feeling comfortable now, right? I'm a little uncomfortable. And how do you create that new space? So I'm excited today.
And we usually feel like, I think it's 100% agreement here, we feel alone. So, what she's going to address is how do you have friendships during a very difficult time in your life, right? So, that's what we all need help with.
Yes.
So she's Elizabeth Duncan-Hawker is an experienced MBA with a passion for helping families navigate the complexities of divorce and friendship. And this has given her a deep understanding of the emotional and legal challenges that arise in these situations. And she's dedicated to finding solutions that work for all parties involved. So, with that as an introduction, welcome to the show, Elizabeth. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh my goodness, it's such a thrill to be here. Thank you, Kendra, and thank you, Mick. Appreciate you.
You bet. So, can you tell us a little bit about your background? We understand that you've written a book, it's Collecting True Friends, and a best-selling author. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Oh, every time you hear that, though, it's so funny when you become that, part of you goes, "Ooh, are they talking about me?" So because there's still that point of modesty that you have. So, Collecting True Friends is a book that has been in the works for years. I actually started it when I was an corporate executive. It was funny because it had a completely different title, and then 10 years later when it finally got into fruition and I was able to tell some of the stories, because I think there's a point in your life that you have to resolve the pain and get through it and work your way through it. So it came to the point, it's like, okay, I can share this message. So Collecting True Friends is the idea of that when you walk on the seashore, you just don't randomly pick up every single shell. You may just want purple ones, or you may want pieces of glass, or there's certain things. So it's the idea that as you go through life, and that's why I'm so thrilled to be here today on The Aftermath, is it's the idea as we're going through and navigating our life, just as you're walking through a seashore, you're paying attention to all of those different people that you're bumping into, and you're saying, oh, you're somebody that I should collect, or somebody that I should start seeing as a potential either friend or business ally. And you don't know where it's going to go. But so many times I have to tell you all, I just see people go, oh, that was weird. I met that person. And then they move on. And then they say to me, Elizabeth, I don't have any friends.
There's a reason, right? That your paths crossed. You just didn't take advantage.
Or they didn't know what to say, or they didn't know how to deal with something. So, and that's what I think you want to talk about today is like, how do you make sure that you're, as my subtitle says, be a magnet to those worthy of your time and devotion. So how are you pulling the right people to you, and how are you keeping them? Because maybe you've collected a whole bunch of those shells and those people in the beginning, and now it's time to kind of reevaluate, because there's a reason and there's a season for relationships, and some people will be worthy of you forever, and some people are more seasonal, and that's okay.
I-
Gosh, so
yeah.
true. That was something that I even said as I was going through my divorce and all my struggles is, there was friends that I had for a reason in that season. And it was truly helpful to know that they didn't have to be long-term friends, but it was a stepping stone, right? And is who I needed at the time. Now, as I'm growing out of that stage, I'm looking to you and interested, and this is a side conversation, Elizabeth, that we can have later, but how do I become that friend that
Mhm.
people do want to be attracted to, right? And is not just always talking about her baggage that's coming up, or what's due, or things like that, right? I just want to know if I'm being a good friend. So anyways, but excited to dive in today with you.
Is that where you want to launch? Is that your question? Or
No, I think that's a side conversation. I think that's a
okay.
follow-up. Maybe, Nick, maybe we could have a follow-up podcast to this.
I love that. I love teasers. So
Yes.
stay tuned to learn more about this. Okay, good.
Well, in that case, I have a question then. I wonder if you could address what happens when you lose friends. In other words, you go through a difficult time
Mm.
and it's fair weather friends because then you go through it's something like a divorce or some related situation and then people don't stick with you because you think they're going to because they are the friends. Maybe you could address a question along those lines.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect place to start, Mick. It really is. Because here's the thing is that sometimes the way that you look at a friendship and the way somebody else looks at a friendship is they're not equally rated. I was going to say related. So it's like relational. So I guess that would be a good term. So the way that you're valuing something is okay. Like for example, my mother recently moved in with us last year, and there's some things that when I look at some of her belongings, I'm thinking that's just a cup. To her, it's a treasured memory. People look at friendships differently and weigh them differently as far as like, oh, I didn't think we were at that level. I kept you more at this level. But to us, we're valuing that person at this level. And that's where the trickiness comes in because that's, like you said, the term fair weather friends. I don't think people mean to be a fair weather friend or rate themselves at that. I just think that emotionally, where they're at and where they're vested, and whether if they're moving, and this is a great example. I've seen several relationships and I've had that happen to me. And I will tell you, it is heartbreaking. So the term that you asked me, you said, well, are there steps you go through? Yes, we actually grieve. And the hard part that I think when you were the person that's being left behind, if that person is the person that's kind of breaking up with you, I think the person needs to be a little bit more sensitive to like, okay, I am physically deciding to distance myself from you. And people spend more time with a romantic breakup and trying to make sure that it's a soft landing and that they're not seen as a total jerk than they do with friendship breakups. And it may be that they're not breaking up with you because of anything particularly you've done. And this is the hard part, particularly for women, because we have a lot more emotions than men. But that's the hard part is women, because we will go around saying, what did I do? What did I do? How could I have done that differently? And in some cases, I would say the minority of them, it is something you've done. And it was something that maybe you could have learned. And so you don't rinse and repeat. But in a lot of cases, I got to tell you, Kendra and Mick, it's simply the fact that the person has moved on. They've either physically relocated, they've gotten a new job, they're not in the office with you anymore, they don't live in your neighborhood, you're not standing there on the soccer field cheering every Saturday morning and bringing oranges, and you're not part of that community. So it's not that they wanted you to not be in their life anymore, it's that things just started fading away because situations changed. So in my book, I call that situational friendships. And people do need to realize and allow that there will be a grieving for that, because you will be missed and you need to recognize that with people. So when you run into somebody and they say, oh my God, I missed you so much, where have you been? And then they start, like, your eyes start tearing up. They're giving you a clue right there. Like, they valued you. Back to, I saw it as a piece of junk, she sees it as a treasured memory. They're valuing you. So maybe you need to say, do I miss, not to them, but do I miss you? And if your answer comes back yes, it's like, you know what, you're right, we need to reconnect, and I am sorry that I have not followed back up with you. So, and then pull out your phone, because I love to give tips and tricks while the person's standing there. If you're getting that emotional feed, I should have stayed connected, pull out your phone and say, you know what, I've got next Tuesday open for lunch. Is that good for you? And book the date then. Don't say, I'll try to follow up with you, because try is a wasted word.
Yes, agreed. You made several good points there, and I kind of want to follow up on a couple of those. How do you deal with friends when you were married and you get divorced and
Sure.
you were couples, right? You were couple friends, we'll
Yes.
call it, right? You played euchre together, you went bowling together, you did things as a couple, right? What does that look like? And then my second follow up to that is, how important is it to keep friends when you're going through a divorce, or, to maybe stage those friends, and who you want to keep in contact with situationally, right?
Well, and divorce is a death. So, I mean, like with any death, I mean, we see that happen with widows and widowers. That is in a couple of couples friends, that if one of the four dies, we've seen that. Then all of a sudden the other ones feel awkward. Oh, I guess we can't go on vacations anymore. Or I guess we can't go out to dinner anymore. So it's the odd man out kind of thing. So, but divorce is a death of some sort. And I think people just don't want to look at it in terms of that, because you had this and now you don't have that. And it's a big empty void that's there. So when you have couple friends, I think it's very important, if your spouse that you're divorcing is willing to not badmouth, which I know that's a very hard thing to get agreement. But if that's possible, if you could get some sort of an accord with him or her and just say, is it possible that when our friends ask, well, what happened, we just say, you know what, we just weren't supposed to stay together anymore. We tried our best, and it's not going to work out. But we really want to continue to be friends with you all and hope you all will continue to be friends with us. So once again, you're turning it and you're inverting it about them. So we want to talk about the person that's asking for those juicy details that we're not going to give them. Because
Sure.
what happens, hopefully, right, Kendra?
Yes, yes.
Because when one person, as I call it, spits in the well, and there's an old expression in the South, because I'm a Southerner, as you can tell, but we say, don't spit in the well because you don't know when you're going to have to drink from it. So
Ooh, I love that. I love that. Love
so
that.
so when one person says that to one of the other people in the couple friends, then what happens is the couple friend gets, they're feeling like, okay, how do I take a side? Who am I going to believe? Who do I like better in this relationship? Versus if you can approach it, and I know I'm asking a lot from your listeners today, but if you're in the divorce and it's possible, you could be the better person and just say, you know what, there's no sense going into that, because I know we were all great friends for quite a while. I don't want you to think poorly of him or her, my spouse. I want you to see us independently. It's okay. Don't feel betrayed. But if you can somehow get them to be Switzerland and not take sides, it's so much better, because when they take that hard line and then they start ignoring you, then that's when the real death starts feeling like you're losing, or worse than that, then they go tell another friend this and another friend that. And then the next thing you know, you're standing out there with going, she did what to you?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think either way, I think if we take the high road, even if our, ex, soon to be ex, is, maybe spitting in the well. I just love that
right.
analogy. Maybe if they're spitting in the well, eventually, maybe, that dries up
Yes.
and they get sick of hearing it, right? And they'll be like, maybe we need to just, go explore what Kendra said here, or Elizabeth said, and, maybe we can still be friends. So I think just even leaving the door open with friends that maybe you didn't spit in the well, but you didn't, weren't able to make a concerted effort together as a couple and talk about it. But maybe just leave the door open that maybe they might come back as friends.
So I love to send, in fact, I just mailed off 3 today, greeting cards. So I keep a whole stack of them in my desk, and I write personal handwritten, like this is kind of a funny one there. For the listeners, I'm holding up like dogs and kittens, and they're chasing each other around the yard. And it would just be like a neutral note, just saying, hey, I know this is a tough time for you, and we've been valued friends for quite a long time. I just want to let you know, if you'd like to give me a call when you come up for air, because it's giving them on their terms, I'm here for you, and it's neutral. So you're not saying, oh, what a terrible thing, or I'm so sorry you're divorced, because we didn't live through it. But you're just acknowledging, like, I'm thinking of you. I know that, if there's anything I can do, or like if they have kids, if you get stuck and you need me to pick up your kids, because at one time you all were very trusted. So you must have trusted them with your kids. So if you get stuck and you need someone to pick up your kids or do something, just let me know. I'm here for you. But a card is neutral, because when they see your return address on there, they're going to be able to then look at it and think, do I want to open this now? No, I'm going to open it tomorrow. So when they're sitting there with their cup of tea or coffee, they can open it up, and then they're going to have that private moment without you being on the phone with them and them feeling like, oh, now I have to have a conversation, because some people don't know what they're going to hear on the other end of a phone. So I like to send a card, just to say, whether it's a death of a real person, or if it's a death of a relationship, or if it's they lost their job. I mean,
Mhm.
there's so many dynamics to what's going on, because maybe through the divorce they had to move.
Mm.
Maybe they can't stay employed anymore with that.
Mm.
Maybe he's a military person, and now he's leaving town, and I mean, weird stuff happens. So
Yeah.
be
I
thoughtful is your second tip.
I love that. I'm gonna write that down. As Mick knows, I take lots of notes. Mick, when was the last time you wrote a personalized card?
1972. Yeah.
So if we get one from you, it's a really big deal. I love that.
That's right. That's right.
I had a question about, and this is what guys go through. So guys are expected to solve problems and get things done. And
Mhm.
so what happens for men when they go through a divorce and they go through same emotional roller coaster ride as everybody else does, and they have down times, the fact that they keep talking about it is very disturbing to other men,
Sure.
because men are used to saying, well, you got a problem, take care of it, get rid of it, basically. And with something
Mhm.
like this that's so deep seated and so emotional, you can't do that. So, what happens for a lot of men is that they lose friends because
Yes.
the guys get sick and tired of hearing like the same old thing over and over again. So, I'm wondering, how can men get through and form good friendships, or retain the friends that they have and know who's a true friend during a difficult time in their life?
It's a great question. I would say, especially when alcohol is involved,
Mm.
because what I've noticed with men is that you all let your guard down. And that's when kind of gets a little bit sloppy with because the revealing starts happening. And you're right. It's hard for other guys to see another guy that vulnerable, because you guys have not been taught to do that. I mean, you were taught, brush it off, get up, what are you, a little girl? I mean, you guys were hazed at an early age to not show emotions. So with guys, I think it's important to assess, and I talk about that on my book. First, take a look at who really is aligning with your values. And if you don't know what your values are, then that's the problem. Because what I saw, in my 20s when I was divorcing, and by the way, I've been happily remarried for 32 years. So there is life after you get through that horrible storm that there is. But what I saw was, when I started looking down on, like, why were we coming together as couple friends, or why was I an individual friend with you? What I realized is sometimes it was because they were a good drinking person after work I was hanging out with, or maybe we had children together and it was an athlete involved. But when I looked at, like, our values, was this person faithful? Was this person kind? Was this person an honest? Was this person somebody I would trust if I said, I need you to go deposit this $50,000 check made out to cash? I mean, it's like,
Mhm.
and what I found, Mick, is that sometimes we were hanging out with people that we shouldn't be hanging out with. So then when you're feeling vulnerable as a guy or a gal, but we're talking about guys right now, but you're trying to have a vulnerable moment of honesty and expression, and trying to think this through, either why did she leave me, or why did it get so bad I had to leave her? And what's happening is that you might be telling, here's the mic drop, you might be talking to somebody that really is not aligned with you, really does not deserve your devotion as a friend, and you should not waste your time having that level of conversation, because they're what you called earlier fair weather friends. They're there for you to have a good cold beer after work. They're there to maybe, but they're not your person that's going to come over and put that fence up after the hurricanes knocked it down. They're not your person that's going to come drive you to the hospital when you need to have an operation. They're not that. And if they're not that, what I call a true friend,
Mhm.
that's why I call the book Collecting True Friends. Okay. So they may not be worthy of being a true friend with you. What you'll find out, though, sometimes and I've heard this repeatedly from some of my guy friends, is they were truly surprised at the guys that they thought they didn't know that well, that really turned out to be true friends that were there for them. Hey, heard your fence fell down. Hey, heard you're getting a divorce. What can I do? I'm really sorry that this happened. It's and they didn't want to get all mushy, assuming the other guy didn't want to be mushy, but they would listen. So I would look back at the values before I would look at who's going to really listen to you and be there to kind of support you and hold you up, because it may be, unfortunately, and the timing's terrible of it, but it may be that not only are you going through a divorce, but you also are going through what I call an inventory friendship list. And when you look at the inventory of, do they possess these values? Because you have your list of values. Now you're looking at the inventory and you're putting the guys and gals' names next to it. But when you look at it, and if their boxes aren't checking off, you're talking to the wrong people about this, because it's not going to serve you in the future. And that's even harder, because then you not only have you ended your marriage, you're probably relocating physically somewhere, but now you have to assess the people that you've seen, and are they worthy to continue to be a true friend? Because you're right. If they're telling you, I don't want to hear any more about that. So, and then, I mean, you have two questions. It's like, okay, are they worthy of me, or are they telling me I need to get some counseling? Because I know I had some friends, and I will tell you this, and this is good advice for everybody, is I did have a couple of friends. They're like, they would say to me nicely, but they're like, Elizabeth, you've said that to me multiple times. And that's a true friend. I'm like, I have. Yes, you've said that to me multiple times. Oh, okay. Well, and then they'll say, and I offered this, but you weren't ready to hear that. So then they would say to me, you know what, maybe getting somebody neutral to talk to. So, and I went through that when I lost my friend. The preface of my book is the beginning of the death of one of my best friends who died in my arms. So, and I'm walking around having PTS and not realizing that I have that. So, and divorce can feel very much like PTS. So if somebody is a true friend, they'll say, hey, Frank, man, you keep bringing this up every single time I see you. Who do you have to talk to that's neutral, that can just listen to it over and over? Because Frank, you got to get this out. You got to get this out, and you need some help talking about it.
Yeah, I think you bring up a very good point. Sometimes you need a therapist, and not all friends are therapists, right? And they're not there for that detailed, like you said, repetitive over and over, right? Or to give advice, or you need that third party. But I think you do bring up a good point, is how many, and I kind of want to explore this a little bit more, but how many true friends do you need to identify? Is it just one or two? And then how do you differentiate on situational friends? If you can kind of touch base on that. I know we've talked a lot about situational, but.
Well, the studies show that as far as how many true friends you can have, they're thinking, like as far as friendships, that no more than 20 people are in your inner circle. But I got to tell you, I don't roll with that, because if you look at the close people that you have just in business alone that you hang out with, then you look at the close people that you have in your neighborhood, or maybe where you volunteer, or your church, or they call it community, right? Then you have, maybe even if you're lucky, in your family. I know it's rare, but you may actually have a couple of friends in your family. And then you look at the people that you actually identify as as women call them besties sometimes. So I think that you can have, and I know I would say I have about 15 really close true friends, maybe 20. In fact, it was funny because the other day I made a list and I was writing down, just that list, because I want to make sure that I'm staying in touch. But I think that goes a little bit wider. Here's the rub, though, is I see more people saying, oh yeah, I've got my two best friends. Okay, but what have you done over the last 2 decades to be adding to finding another best friend? Because if you don't work every decade to seed at least another, I would recommend at least 2 strong friendships. So if you don't work every decade, what will happen to you, for the older listeners here, is when you get about 60, 65 and you're thinking you're going to retire, what's going to happen is those two best friends that maybe you had since high school, well, one's going to either die or pop off. And you may be lucky if when you turn 40, if you still have those two best friends. It is really critical to start seeding along the way. And that takes me back to my comment about values. You have to define yourself with your values and know what you stand for and know what's important to you. Because when you do not, then you're going to be lost as the people that you're going to collect along that path. So back to Mick's comment about situational friends, what defines the difference between that. Situational friends, and that's what catches people off guard. Situational friends, though, you're going to find out that when you're, I know it sounds basic, but when your situations change,
Yeah.
right. We got that. We need a little music for that one.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So situational friends are when your situations change, then all of a sudden they see you differently. But sometimes it's hard for us when we're so loyal and we're so devoted in our heart and we hold a special place for them. They were like, well, I thought we'd be friends forever. Well, just because the soccer seasons are done and our kids have graduated now. So that's the hard part. So here's what I recommend. And this is the art to collecting true friends. Right? And the same thing if you want business allies, is when you know a situation's getting ready to end, maybe it's a huge project at work. You've been working on it for the last year. You have bonded through fire. You've had your butts chewed out. You have just like rolled up your sleeves. You answered the phone at 11 p.m. at night. I mean, you worked and so you feel like you're bonded with that people. If you like one or two of those people on your team, this is the time you step up and you say, hey, I really enjoyed working with you. And I hope that you feel more like a friend to me now than just a business ally. Is it possible? Would you like to get some coffee? Or we're having, and I love to invite people to events. So, because I have tickets to things all the time in memberships, maybe you're part of the aquarium and they're having their annual gala or something. It's not going to cost you anything. You get extra tickets and you're going to say, hey, would you like to come and see the fishes with us and go run around and here's an event? And then if they say, I'm sorry, I'm busy, then go great. I'll invite you again to the next thing, because that's called, and I know I'm fire hosing you guys a lot of information, but if you want to help a situational friendship continue, you need to invite them to something. And what that's called is the law of reciprocity. And when you introduce the law of reciprocity, you are moving them from a work friendship or a situational friendship. Maybe it was just a project or a community event or a church function, but you're moving them along to like, now I want to put you in friendship mode with me. There's something about you that I like enough to invite you to something. And if they can't come the first time, they can't come the second time, ask them what day of the week's better for them, that you'd really like to see them. Because when you do that, what's going to happen is their barrier is going to start coming down and they're going to go, wow, she really does like me, or he really does want to see me. And then all of a sudden you're going to get a yes. But here's the cool part. Even if you don't get a yes right away, that law of reciprocity, it's a psychological term that is implanted in human beings. When you do something nice for somebody, it is ingrained in all of us. And even if we don't want to, we feel compelled to do something back. Okay. So they are going to invite you to something. Like 80% of the time it's going to work. So even if you get a no, I can't go to the ball game, I can't go to the event, or thanks for inviting me to, your birthday party or something, now's not a good time. They're going to find something for you. And then that's going to fix the situational friends, Mick, and that's also going to flush out who could possibly be a true friend for you. I know I gave you a lot to unpack there.
That was a lot, Elizabeth. I was making notes a lot.
I've got some thoughts about that because, yeah, it's fine to keep the information and the advice coming. So as an older person, I've kind of experienced some of the things that you've said. And although I have few friends, I think I have picked up friends along the way. And of course, I've had a tragedy. I had a high school buddy of mine. It was like a wonderful human being, and he passed away. So those things do happen. But over the course of decades, I think probably I have been doing the right thing. So I'm glad to hear older person, I'm on the right track. I picked up a friend or two along the way as having some friends who've been around for a long time. But I had a question along the lines of, it's a biblical idea, and friendship is that iron sharpens iron, and that's a definition of friendship. Now, the reason I say this is because I know people who say, well, I have a lot of friends, and I look at the relationship and I go, this is pretty superficial. They're really not looking out for you. And what I get out of that verse is that a really good buddy of mine that I've known for some 40 some years is that we sharpen iron against one another. I don't just say the things that he wants to hear, and nor does he just say to me the things I want to hear, but we actually get into some really deep conversation. So I'm wondering if you could address a thought like that. And
Oh,
that's the notion
okay.
of iron
I,
sharpens iron.
yeah, I agree, Mick.
I wrote it
100%.
down. That's the writer downer, everybody.
Yes, I was going to kind of ask that as well. But I'm kind of like you, Mick. I think I'm old soul. I only have a few friends. When she said like 20 or 15, I'm like, oh my gosh, I better start making some friends because
My heart dropped.
I keep mine super small. I bet I have 5 or less of really close friends. Now, do I have friends that I could pick up the phone and pick up like yesterday from college? Yes. We don't miss a beat, right?
That counts. That
Okay.
counts.
Oh, okay. See, I wasn't counting them.
Start counting them in. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Then maybe I have a few more friends. But I'm like you, Mick, older soul. I just I'm and maybe I'm super picky. Maybe my values, I wrote that down. My values I had to realign, and maybe some of our listeners as well, after we all come out of a divorce. We have to figure out ourselves, right? And Mick, you and I have talked about that. We have to figure out who we are. And sometimes that's different than who we were in the marriage, right? And we get to redefine ourselves. So we're redefining ourselves. We might be creating new values, which might lead to different or new friendships. So you fed us a whole bunch there, Elizabeth. So go back to Mix and address his point. Sorry. Iron sharpens iron.
Oh, I love that. Like I said, that's for all your listeners, that's a writer downer. And it's a beautiful thought, because back to my comment when I said, hey, Frank, you keep mentioning that over and over. We're having the same conversation. That's the moment where iron is sharpening iron. Somebody's saying that not because they're sick of hearing it, but they're saying it as like, dude, what are you going to do about this? Like I want you to get better, and I want you to move on and move up and move over. But this, you're dwelling. So, and if they need to just dwell, but iron sharpening iron is, that's going to be one of my new favorite terms, Mick, because that is absolutely what a true friend does. A true friend is the person, like when I was going to go back, get my master's, my true friend, Terry, she's been my longest term one since we were 14. And by the way, she was the one I sat behind in French class, and I kept tapping her shoulder going, hey, where do you live? And she was just trying to ignore me. So if you make this a verb in your life, and you start looking at people that you're thinking, oh, hey, this might be something I need. But think about if I had not tapped on Terry's shoulder in French class and annoyed her, and said, hey, where do you live? And she tells me, and I go, oh, that's really close to us. Wow, we could ride bikes together. So see how I invited her to something? So when you do not follow through on something, then what if I had not done that with Terry at that moment? And Terry is one of the people, for example, when I got ready to go back and get my master's, she's like, Elizabeth, you have 3 young children. You work 60 hours a week. I just want to make sure you're going to take care of your health on this, because I'm really happy that you're going to do this. But, and she was the one that introduced me to the program, because I wasn't even thinking about it, because we'd been in undergrad together. And she's like, I think I want to go back and get my master's. So we signed up, and it was like, now here's the funny part. I continued, she dropped out. So that's iron sharpening iron. I would have never in my life, in my 30s, thought, yeah, I'll go back to school with 3 young kids and stuff. But if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have had 6 more promotions. I wouldn't be the person I am today and run my own Red Hawk consulting company. I mean, so she makes me a better person. And then by the same token, there were some things that I felt like when she would tell me something, I'd go, I'm not sure I agree with that. Can we talk about it? So that's the point when you have a true friend, that you have to feel comfortable. But I would recommend you ask permission. you should instead of just going, okay, great, I'm going to sharpen you at this moment because you're off. But if you see something that like you don't like, you don't hear, or you think they're missing an opportunity, that's a beautiful time to say, hey, you know, my heart's with you. You know how loyal I am to you. You know, I'm on your team. Have you considered this? Because I'd like to talk to you about something. Is it okay if I give you my perspective on that? So, and then that kind of opens the door to like, okay, well, what am I missing? You know, and I have had, by the way, the other listening tip I'll give you all is it's really important when somebody's venting to you or telling you something. I know I'm kind of going sideways here, Mick, on your question, but as far as iron sharpening iron, it is related. If somebody's just venting on something, ask them, are you just venting and you just want me to hear it, or are you asking for advice?
Yeah,
Because,
I've heard that before. That is so critical.
and you know what? Here's the crazy part. When I started implementing that rule, 90% of all the people said, no, I'm just talking about it. I don't want advice.
Well, and to your point, right, Mick, men want to fix things, right? So in my relationship, instead of he wasn't asking, right, what I wanted, but I started just saying, I just want you to listen. You don't need to fix this, right? So I just started saying what I expected out of the conversation. I just need you for 10 minutes just to listen to me, and then we can move on. And then he knows what's expected of him. And so I thought, that speaks to the male perspective as well, Mick.
When you say this is immediately what I thought of, because this is what happens in male-female relationships. And I know as a guy, there are times when a woman is saying things like this, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, my instinct is, well, let's fix this. And then sometimes they're like, oh, you just wanted to talk about, well, why didn't you say that to me? Because I'm trying to fix it. And, you're just wanting to talk because guys, have a different communication pattern. We don't usually just don't talk. We talk to, achieve an objective, right? It's like the
It is
military.
true, Mick.
We're going to take that hill, right? And here we go. Let's go, guys. But
and
it's,
and I call in my book, I call that man talk.
yes. And
And that's one of the reasons why women lose men in conversations is because
yes.
we have to learn man talk.
And
We do.
and that's what I'm saying. I find it much more common in male-female relationships where you're saying, I didn't know you were just wanting to talk. I mean, why don't you just say
Yeah.
that? Because I'm thinking, well, here's the solution. And then they get angry because I found a solution. I go, well, don't you want to fix it? And no, they just want to talk. It's very difficult for guys to understand that a lot of times.
Right.
It is. It
And
is.
then,
And on the flip side, right? My boyfriend and his son, they'll text back and forth, and I'll say, and they'll just, quick little man talks, right? When are you going to be home? What time? Okay. Just what they need to know. And I'm like, well, who's he with? What's he doing? What's she doing? What's she like? What's her name? And he's like, I don't know. I didn't get the book. I just got the short, what I needed to know.
I got the Cliff Notes.
Right.
That's funny.
A couple things I want to go back to real fast, Elizabeth, and I want you to kind of flip it. So, yes, for all of us who's moved on past our divorce,
Okay.
We can be maybe more cognizant of helping people or inviting them to things or being that friend. But when you're in the midst of a divorce,
Yes.
right, kind of back it up. And I was not in the mood to do anything nice for anybody. God bless.
Sure.
But so many people did nice things for me. And then two is you have to be, I think, ready to receive some true friendship feedback, as we've been talking about, right? Some of those iron sharpens iron, right? So you have to be ready and willing to receive that. And so maybe there's, I don't know, with those true friends, how do you set those boundaries? What does that look like?
So, well, you unpacked a lot there too. I made some notes. So let's do the last one first. And that is how do you receive that? Timing. It is super, super important that you're judging the rawness of somebody. Are they capable of hearing your message? What do they need at the moment? And that's one of the biggest part. What do they need at the moment? It's because a lot of times I've seen people jump in and they just assume like what Mick was saying, we want to fix something. It's like, oh, you keep talking about 2 + 2. Okay, I know it's 4. Let me just but the person may not be ready to do math at the moment. Their brain may be so raw, their heart might be broken. I remember walking around For those of you that can't see the screen, I remember walking around and I had an ache, like somebody had just taken a sword and cut me across my chest. And I went, oh, this is heartache. I didn't know heartache, the term, was a real thing. Like, I mean, sometimes I would just push on my chest, trying to like make it not hurt as much. And they're grieving and they're looking. I remember walking around and seeing like a family with a husband and a wife, toting their child and just weeping, like, oh, a family unit. I mean, so we need to assess the timing of our message, because is this person so raw, so vulnerable, so that if you have to tell them something like, well, when you do this, it causes that, maybe it's not time for that. So make a note of it, write it down, what you'd like to share with the person later, but make sure your timing's right, because you can really hurt somebody in a whole new way, and that could end a relationship because they may not be ready for the message, just that's a big thing. The other thing is so we're talking about, this is while you're in the middle of it. As I mentioned, is that I lost all of my friends except for my best friend since I was 14, Terry. And the ironic part is that those were actually friends that I brought into our relationship, brought into the marriage. We used to have these incredible parties. I had a beautiful purple parachute that we would put up that would inflate and exflate. It would go up and down, and everybody knew that the big parties were going on at my home. And I mean, I'm talking like we had like 60 or 80 people that would come over and for these fabulous things. But I'm the one that brought all of them into our relationship. And yet when that relationship was over, my marriage ended, sadly, because of the things that were said. All of those people that used to come to all of my big parties left me too. So once again, timing is critical. So here's my advice. I realized sitting down looking at that, even with my heartache and my chest physically hurt, I said, what have I got to do to fix this? Because I'm a fixer, Mick. I'm the person, I'm a planner. So what I did is I called up some of the people that I thought aligned with my values. And I remember one of them was Edgar. We used to call him Bubba. And he's gone on to become a lawyer, which is hilarious because now I'm sure he doesn't go by Bubba. Edgar.
Well, he's Southern. He could.
Right. But, and I called him up and I said, and I hadn't talked to him in years. Like because we got through college, he moved on. And I called him up and I said, hey, are you still local? And he's like, I am. And I said, listen, we're, such and such and I divorced. I don't know if you heard about that. I go, but I need to regroup. I need to build a new network. I need new friends. Would you be willing to meet me and introduce me to some of your friends? Because I trust you. I trust your judgments. You're successful. You're ambitious. You're kind. You're loyal. You were always a very good friend to me in college. So I reached back. So Kendra, just like you still have college friends. All of those college friends can move forward. And he was so kind to me. He goes, absolutely. We're going boating next Friday. Why don't you come down? And he says, and so I'm like, I'm in. What do I wear? And I was scared. My heart was pounding. I hadn't seen him for years. His beautiful, lovely girlfriend was there. They later went on and got married. And how gracious of her to not be threatened. That, this redhead showing up, that used to go to college with him. So she's allowing me, and they're introducing me to their friends. They introduced me to more parties. It took time, but I had to seed an entire new network, and it is work. So for your listeners, I'm going to tell you that it is work, but you're worth it. And if you talk to the right people and say, I would like to be invited to some things, I need some fun in my life, and then make an effort to show up, make sure you're rested, make sure you look nice, and you make an effort to have energy and just don't stand over in the corner. But it's work. And when you do that, you will seed an entire new network with you, and you can leave that behind you. So
and I think it's critical for your mental health.
Oh my goodness.
It really is, to have the friends and the support. It's critical for your mental health.
It is. And you'd be surprised how many people, if they liked you before, they're going to be happy to hear from you. Now, it was funny because I reached out to one of my business allies. And it was funny because I think he thought I was hitting on him. And I was like, I wasn't hitting on him. And he goes, and he said the weirdest thing to me. He goes, I'm a widow and I got dishpan hands. And Elizabeth, I don't go out and see anybody. I was like, I don't want to date you. I'm just asking you, can you introduce me to some of
Do you
your
not have any friends? Maybe he didn't have any friends.
but it was just that, so people might say some weird things to you when you like call up out of the blue and just say, hey, I'm going through this and I need to make new friends and stuff. So just be real clear to him. Go, I just was hoping if you know some nice people, you could introduce me to nice people. I'm not looking for you to hook me up with a date. I just need to be with some good, healthy, wholesome, fun people that that. And if you want to throw in a value that you like in there, like if you want to say, that enjoys music, that just likes to travel, is good, honest people, hardworking. I mean, just give your description, put it out there. You're also proclaiming that. So the more you proclaim that, some people call it the universe, I call it God, but the more you proclaim it, the more it will start coming your way. You just need to proclaim it and own it. So, but start a new network and pay attention to timing when you're the person either trying to deliver a message or you're trying to give a message and receive it. And also, if somebody wants to say something to you and they haven't paid attention to the timing, forgive them. I had people say the stupidest things to me. Oh, dear Lord. So weigh them out with the value list. It's like, okay, do I like them enough that we're going to get beyond this? Or are you really just that much of a dullard that you don't realize? And maybe I don't need to continue you in my life. I mean, seriously.
Yes. You know what? Can you address, and I know we're coming up on about 5 minutes left or so, and Mick, I'm sure you have, I still have a slew of questions. So I have a feeling we're going to follow up with you. We're going to have another podcast.
Yay.
I just have a quick question on, does age matter?
Yes.
Okay.
So statistics show that the older we get, the less inclined people are willing to be our friends. That's why it is critical to your listeners. I promise you, this is so important. Please pay attention. Please pay attention to that. That if you're looking for somebody and you want to be their friend, proclaim it. Ask them. Make that very clear to them. Like, look, I am looking to bring some new, really great people into my friendship circle. I have some room. I have some bandwidth. Now, here's the thing, though, with age. Because if you don't have a mixture of friends, like I have friends from their late 20s all the way up to 90. Okay. Yes. So if you only hang out with 40-year-olds or you only hang out with 25-year-olds, it makes it very hard for you to mix your friends. It also makes it hard for people to want to be your friend if you're 70 and everybody is gray haired and doesn't even know what an app is. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, so stay young or also be kind to what being older is. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be, is good, wholesome human beings and stuff. But age, unfortunately, it works against you the older you get. And then I have also seen it work against younger people. I've seen 40-some-year-olds think, what does a 22-year-old have to do? What, like, seriously? And I'm like, are you kidding me? They're so flippin' smart. Go ask them a question. Like,
yeah. Yeah. And those 20 and 30-year-olds that might be getting divorced that are young, guidance from older ones are,
yes.
Older people are great. So I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah. And I love that too, Kendra, because please, if you're the older person, don't give them all your baggage. This has changed. Okay, you got divorced in the 70s. Oh, get over it. Good God, like, help yourself. Like, I don't care if the church ostracized you then. They don't do that now. Like be current with your stories. Be kind with your stories. Look at like I said, timing. But people really will say some stuff that you're like, really? What century are you from?
Yeah.
That was pre-computers. Divorce has changed.
Yes. Well, Mick, do you have any final thoughts or questions?
Well, there's a lot. I think what we can say is that, yes, we should come back for another. We got a whole another slew of questions and things that we love the follow up too. So this is good. So let's try to wrap it up and then we'll see what goes for next time.
I will be your resident friendship expert. Bring me in. Let's talk about relationships and how to make them better.
And we all need friends. So
Yes.
thank you, Elizabeth, for being our special guest today. This is the best-selling author of Collecting True Friends, and this is helping you through divorce. So appreciate all your time, Kendra and Elizabeth. Great to see you guys again. And don't we have a handout or something? We have something that people can get. Is that right,
I
Kendra?
I think we do, and I think one of us is a jailbird and one of us is a juvenile delinquent. Is that right,
No
Nick?
way. Oh, come on now. I mean, that's right. But we always ask, guess which one is which. But yes, we do have a free download. So get a hold of us and you get the chuck with that. And it tells you a little bit more about what we're talking about on all the topics of custody, parental alienation, and friendship. Till next time.
Elizabeth, while we're on the topic, how do they get a hold of your book?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. So it's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble online. And so if you Google it, and I am the only Duncan-Hawker, Duncan-Hawker. And you can find me. I'm on LinkedIn, but I'm the only Duncan-Hawker in the world. So you can't miss me, Elizabeth Duncan-Hawker. And reach out. I'd love to hear from you, your questions. And I'm going to give you the link. You can have them connect me through Linktree. And I too have a gift for them too. So
All
there's
right.
something they can get hold of on relationship building. That would be easy if that helps them.
We will put it all in the show notes. Thank you
Lovely.
so much.
This
We
has
will.
been so much fun. I knew it would be.
Delightful guest. We appreciate your time and all your wisdom. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
We look forward to next time.
Till next time. See you then. Deus Volt.